My name is Marin Solas, 29 years old. I can tell you the exact minute my relationship ended. 12:31 p.m. Over a bowl of desk salad that tasted like wilted decisions, when my boyfriend reposted a quote that didn't just rub me wrong, it sanded through the bone. It was one of those black on beige squares with a font that thinks it's wise. Dating a woman who can't afford to spoil you is just friendship with extra steps. He didn't add context. He didn't need to. He had been building a brand of statements like that, the kind that tell you what someone believes without ever admitting it out loud. I stared at the screen, watched the tiny circles of viewers stack up under his story, then tapped the little heart and replied, "Agreed. Real relationships require equal investment." 2 minutes later, my phone trembled across the desk. Nate calling. I let it go to voicemail. I was in a client review, and besides, I wanted him to sit with it. A text came next. "Babe, that wasn't about us. It's just content for engagement." Then another, "Call me." Then a third, "Marin, seriously." By the time I got home, he was pacing the living room, jaw tight, his favorite hoodie misrepresenting him as chill. "Are you being weird about a stupid repost?" he asked, like the word stupid might shrink what he'd done. "I'm not being weird," I said, dropping my bag by the console table I bought in the condo I own, filled with furniture I paid for while he focused on building his audience. "You shared your standards. I respected them." "It's not that deep." He rolled his eyes. "It's for my brand. Sponsors like engagement." "Your brand," I repeated, letting it settle between us like a room temperature truth. I'd heard it so often it felt like a religion he tithed to with other people's money. That night I brewed coffee in the quiet and opened my laptop at the kitchen island. 2 years of statements, Venmo notes, card charges, the 1,000 small transactions you perform when love is a verb and money is its grammar. I wasn't angry while I did it. Anger is loud. This was something colder and clearer, the way air feels before a storm when the pressure drops and you finally understand why your bones ache. Subject: Invoice for friendship services, per your standards. Body: per your recent social media post, it appears you define romance by the ability to spoil. If you'd like to reclassify our arrangement as friendship, please find attached compensation due for services rendered under false pretenses. I itemized the last 24 months. Rent, condo room, market rate, $1,850. X in 14 months, $25,900. Utilities internet, $200. X 14, $2,800. Groceries, AVG, $600. X on 24, $14,400. Dinners out, itemized, $8,750. Vacation, Cabo, $4,200. Weekend, wine country, $1,800. Car insurance, his, $150. Ekaz 18, $2,700. Gym membership that he swore was content, $1,089. Creator wardrobe and equipment for the brand, $6,818. I attached PDFs. I CC'd myself at my work email and hit send. Then I set my phone to do not disturb, washed my face, and slept like a person who'd finally turned off a leaking faucet. 6 hours later, I walked into my living room and found an intervention staged on the mid-century sofa I bought. Nate and his best friend Mason, the self-appointed arbiter of masculinity, who had once told me budgeting kills spontaneity. Mason rose like a courtroom drama. "Are you insane?" he said, before I could say hello. "Sending an invoice to your boyfriend? That's abusive." "Hey, Mason," I said, setting my laptop on the buffet. "Didn't know we had company." Nate spread his hands like this was all a misunderstanding we could clear up if I'd just be reasonable. "Marin, it was a meme. You posted it, you defended it, you told your followers it spoke to your core values." I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolled, and read his caption aloud. "You used the word standards 3 times. Mason scoffed. "You can't charge a boyfriend for living expenses. That's not how relationships work." According to Nate's post, I said, relationships are financial performance. If that's the metric, then he knows which category we fall into, romance or friendship with extras. If it's friendship, I'd like to be compensated. Nate's eyes shone with the kind of tears that had always worked on people who confuse volume with sincerity. Baby, don't do this. You know I love you, not your money. Then you won't mind signing a lease. I lifted a single sheet of paper from the counter and slid it across the island. Market rate for a room is $2,200. I'm offering $900 inclusive of utilities. First and last month due to start. His face went slack. You're serious. I am. I can't afford that. You know I don't make enough yet. Then maybe don't post about women who can or can't spoil you, I said softly, because we're not talking aesthetics. We're talking rent. Mason leaned forward, voice rising. This is financial abuse. No, I said. Financial abuse would be funding your lifestyle while you publicly shame me for not funding it more. Nate grabbed my hands across the counter the way he does when he wants to reroute the conversation into a hug. Please, Marin, I panicked. That post was dumb. I'll take it down. You already doubled down, I said, thumbing open his story and flicking through fresh slides. When he shows you who he is, believe him. Some women just get it. Others expect handouts. You went on a tear all day. He swore. It's engagement. I told you. Then engage with this, I said, opening messages. I read aloud. November 2022. Thank you for letting me stay without paying. You're literally saving my life. March 2023. Can't wait till my channel takes off so I can spoil you like you spoil me. June 2023. My boys are jealous. You take care of everything. I'm lucky. Mason stopped talking. The room made a small clicking noise as the HVAC turned on, the condo deciding to comfort me, even if they wouldn't. I'm giving you 30 days' notice to move out, I said, sliding a printed letter across the island. This is official. Nate recoiled like the paper burned. If you do this, I'll sue you. You can't retrocharge me. I'll get a lawyer. Please do, I said almost gently. My attorney will love to attach these texts and your story reels to the response. He stared at me for a long second and then did what people do when their script fails. He changed genres. He reached for his phone, hit record, and said, This is what financial abuse looks like. My girlfriend is trying to make me pay $68,000 for loving her. I tapped play on the screen record I'd captured minutes earlier and set my phone beside his. My audio read his thank you messages in my voice, while his video captured his outrage. It was absurd and mutual and unmistakable, and when he realized he'd trapped himself inside his own performance, he lowered the phone and pressed his fingers to his eyes. Here's the secret I hadn't told him. I hadn't been serious about collecting the invoice penny for penny. If he'd read it carefully, he would have seen the line about payment plan options and a negotiated offset for hours of help he'd given me during a work crunch. What I wanted was calibration, to hold up a mirror to a business model he refused to admit he was running. But you can learn a lot from someone's first response. His wasn't embarrassment or apology, it was a campaign. He left without saying goodbye. Mason muttered, Unbelievable, like I'd failed an exam he couldn't pass either. When the door shut, the condo exhaled. The quiet wasn't empty, it was accurate. At 7 the next morning, my phone rang. Patricia, his mother, the woman who called me a steadying influence when she needed me to pay for his dental bill. We need to discuss, she said without preamble, the situation with Nathan. Good morning to you too, I said. Don't be cute. What's this about evicting my son and sending him a bill? Over a Facebook post? It wasn't Facebook, I said. And it wasn't just a post. It's a pattern. Your son thinks relationships are transactional, but only in one direction. She went quiet long enough for me to hear a kettle click off in the background. How much has he taken you for? She asked finally. I sat down. Excuse me? I'm not blind, Marin. He did this to Bria, and to Connie before that. Lives rent-free, builds his brand, then melts down when anyone asks him to contribute. I've tried to get him to take a real job. She sighed. He blocks me when I bring it up. Unblocks me when he needs something. What do you want me to do? Give him another chance. You lasted longer than the others. He does care about you. Patricia, I said, he's online right now, calling me an abuser because I asked him to contribute. He can care about me without living in my condo. She exhaled. 30 days isn't much. It's standard, I said, and it's generous, considering the rent he hasn't paid. After we hung up, I made coffee and opened my inbox. A new message pinged from an unfamiliar address with a subject line that felt like a premonition. Bria, you don't know me, but I know him. I clicked, and the first sentence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about a meme, it was about a method. The email from Bria was short, but it hit like deja vu dressed in someone else's heartbreak. He did the same thing to me. Same words, same content, same TikTok sob story after I left. You're not crazy, Marin. You're just next on the list. She attached screenshots, one of his old posts from a year ago. Dating a woman who can't afford to invest in you isn't love, it's charity. Beneath it, her reply, agreed. Love is mutual investment. His caption, when she can't keep up, she blames you for wanting better. I stared at it for a long time. The repetition wasn't just coincidence, it was choreography. That same night, Nate started his own performance, a TikTok series titled Escaping Financial Manipulation, My Story. The thumbnail was his practiced expression. Sad, but not too sad. A hero's sadness that begged for comments. The video opened with him sitting in our old living room, my living room, telling the world how his ex weaponized money to control him. He even changed the lighting. By the next morning, the video had 50,000 views and a split comment section. Half of them calling me trash, half wondering why a 29-year-old man was crying about rent. At noon, episode 2 dropped. He described the signs of control. Exhibit A. She asked me to contribute $50 toward groceries once. Exhibit B. She kept receipts. Exhibit C. She said love should be equal. I scrolled, half disgusted, half amazed. He wasn't just telling lies, he was recycling them from memory. By the afternoon, episode 3 hit. This time, he tried to prove his abuse, screen sharing the Invoice email. But his editing skills weren't as sharp as his entitlement. He didn't crop the screen properly. Every line item was visible. Every dollar, every description, every brand expense he'd begged me to cover. And the internet noticed. The top comment, wait, he lived rent-free for 2 years? The second, she paid for your car insurance and you're mad about groceries? By the third hour, someone had reposted the clip on Twitter with the caption, "This man's complaining about his investor." It went viral. Within a day, his narrative crumbled. His followers dropped. Sponsors unfollowed. His brand was suddenly radioactive. That night, he knocked on my bedroom door. I was half expecting another argument. Instead, I opened it to find him standing there shirtless, in the same boxers he'd modeled for his so-called fitness collab, holding a half-empty glass of whiskey. "Can we talk?" he said softly. "We're talking," I said, keeping my tone neutral. He stepped inside like the conversation was an invitation. "I miss you," he murmured, trying to reach for my hand. I stepped back. "You've spent 3 days telling the internet I'm financially abusive. That's not exactly foreplay." He smiled weakly. "I was angry. I didn't mean it. I panicked. I don't know how to be on my own." I studied him. The boyish face that had once made me soft. The same charm that always came right before another bill. "You're almost 30, Nate." "I know," he said. "But I'm scared. I'll delete everything. I'll get a full-time job. I'll pay rent. Just don't make me leave." I looked at the lease I'd printed days ago, still on the kitchen counter. First and last month, $900 each. You've got 26 days left. His expression darkened. "You're really serious about this?" "I was serious the first dozen times I paid your half," I said. He slammed the door so hard, the frame rattled. The neighbor texted me 5 minutes later. "Everything okay over there?" "Yes," I wrote back. "Finally." The next morning, my phone buzzed at 7 a.m. "Patricia." "Marin," she said, no greeting, no preamble. "We need to discuss what's happening with Nathan." I sipped my coffee. "Good morning to you, too." "Don't be clever. What's this nonsense about eviction and invoices? You can't just throw someone out over a meme." "It wasn't a meme," I said. "It was a manifesto." She exhaled. "How much did he take you for?" The question stunned me. "Excuse me?" "You're not the first," she said, her voice softening. "He did it to Bria, and before her, Connie. Moves in, convinces them it's temporary, builds his little influencer brand while they pay for everything. When they start asking for contribution, he leaves." I pressed my palm to my forehead. "And you knew this?" "I warned him. I told him one day he'd pick a woman who wouldn't play along." "Well," I said, "that day's here." She sighed. "Give him time, Marin. 30 days isn't enough." "It's generous," I said. "He's lived rent-free for 14 months." "He's my son," she said quietly. "But even I'm tired of this pattern." "I know," I said. "You raised him. You shouldn't have to fix him too." For the first time, she didn't argue. "You sound like his father," she whispered. "The man he resents most." "I'm not his father," I said, finishing my coffee. "I'm his landlord until the end of the month." She didn't call again. By that weekend, the financial abuse videos had vanished from TikTok. His profile photo changed to a black square and a caption, "Taking time for mental health." Meanwhile, Bria messaged again. I saw your comment section. You handled him better than I did. He used to tell me you were jealous of his drive. I typed back, he doesn't have drive, he has gaslighting. She sent a laughing emoji. Then, we should start a group chat. You're not the only one. Sunday night, as I was locking up for bed, Nate's voice floated through the door. Marin, he said softly, can I come in? No. I just want to talk. Then talk through the door. Silence stretched. Then he said, you really think you're better than me, don't you? No, I said. I think I stopped pretending we're the same. There was a pause, and then the sound of his retreating footsteps. For the first time in months, I slept straight through the night. Monday morning, an envelope waited under the door. My name typed neatly, the return address from some boutique law firm in the city. Inside, a letter from his lawyer claiming intentional infliction of emotional distress and demanding $10,000 for reputational damage to Nate's personal brand. I laughed out loud. It wasn't the amount that got me. It was the audacity of trying to monetize his own humiliation. I forwarded it to my attorney with the subject. New episode, same script. His reply came 15 minutes later. Don't worry, this will be the series finale. That evening, the quiet in my condo was so complete I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator. I hadn't realized how much space his noise had taken up. The tapping of his keyboard at 2 a.m., the endless calls to collab partners, the fake laughter from his phone speaker. Now it was just me. And for the first time, silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and typed one line into a new document. Not a post, not a clapback, just a thought. Peace doesn't need to go viral. Then I hit save, closed the computer, and let the room stay still. The next morning, my lawyer, Elena, called me, sounding far too cheerful for someone about to dismantle a man's delusion. Marin, good news. I read the letter. And? I asked, sipping my coffee. She laughed. It's so baseless I'm framing it. He's claiming emotional distress from being held accountable. Classic projection. I'll handle it. By noon, she'd already sent a response. Terse, lethal, and polite enough to sting. My client's email was satirical in tone, evidenced by the clearly labeled payment plan options. Your client's public defamation campaign, however, is actionable. Please cease all posts referencing Ms. Solace, or we'll pursue damages. 2 hours later, I got a screenshot from Bria. Nate had deleted every video, every story, every pity hashtag. His lawyer must have explained how frivolous lawsuits work when you're unemployed. I wanted to feel triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. The days that followed were quiet in the way an unplugged machine is quiet. You keep expecting a whir that never comes. Nate avoided me completely. I'd come home to find little traces of him disappearing piece by piece. Sneakers gone, closet thinning out, shelves emptying. I started finding small items accidentally left behind. A mug, a hoodie, his cologne bottle balanced carefully by the sink. Breadcrumbing. It was a tactic. Leave enough behind to stay present, to linger like a ghost that still pays rent in your head. The first time he texted, it was about a coffee mug. Hey, left my favorite mug in the cabinet. Can I come grab it? I texted back. I'll leave it with the doorman. Then the hoodie. Need my hoodie back. It's sentimental. Check with the doorman, I replied again. Then face cream. I left my face cream. Can I swing by? I stared at the message for a minute, imagining his smirk as he typed it. It's at the front desk, I said. Be civil. This is civil. That's when he stopped asking about objects and started asking for sympathy. We had good times though, right? I didn't respond. He began posting throwback photos instead. Old selfies of us at dinner, the ones I'd taken and he'd always said didn't match his aesthetic. His captions read like public diary entries. Some people come into your life for a season. She was my peace and my storm. The comments turned brutal almost immediately. People who had once believed him now pointed out the receipts, the cropped videos, the irony. But I stayed quiet. That was the new rule. 2 weeks before his move-out deadline, the elevator chimed and I heard voices in the hallway. Loud ones. I opened the door and froze. Nate stood there, smiling, wearing that faux zen expression he used for apologies. Beside him was a man I didn't recognize. 6 feet tall, gym muscles stuffed into a too-tight t-shirt, jaw clenched like he'd practiced intimidation in a mirror. Marin, this is Tom, Nate said smoothly. He's helping me move. Good for Tom, I said. Everything needs to be out by 5. Tom grinned, extending a hand. Actually, I'm a paralegal, he said, emphasizing the word like it was a badge. Nate mentioned some issues with the lease. Thought I'd clarify a few things. I folded my arms. There is no lease. Right, Tom said, rocking back on his heels. But he's been here more than 30 days, which technically gives him tenant rights. You can't just throw him out. Nate crossed his arms like he'd rehearsed the line with Tom in the car. I smiled. You're absolutely right, I said, which is why he was given official 30 days notice, notarized, and hand-delivered 2 weeks ago. Would you like to see the copy? Tom blinked. You have paperwork? I turned, retrieved the folder from the console table, and handed it to him. The notary stamp gleamed under the light like a crown jewel. Tom skimmed the first page, his confidence leaking out by the sentence. Well, this looks, thorough. Nate frowned. Wait, you actually got it notarized? Yes, I said, and I CC'd my attorney, who's already aware of your lawyer's previous letter. You remember that one? He muttered something under his breath. Tom coughed. So, I guess we'll get started, he said quickly. They shuffled inside like deflated salesmen. I stood by the kitchen counter, arms folded, watching them pack. Nate tried to make small talk, narrating his own downfall, like he could still charm his way into sympathy. You know, I never meant for things to get this bad. You mean being held accountable? I asked. He sighed. You're cruel when you're calm. No, I said, I'm clear when I'm calm. There's a difference. Tom coughed again, pretending to focus on wrapping a picture frame. They moved slower than I thought humanly possible. Every box packed was followed by a pause, a sigh, a sideways glance, as if expecting me to crack and invite him back into conversation, or maybe back into the narrative where he was the victim. At one point, Nate picked up a photo of us from a trip we took early on, when things still felt easy. Remember this? He asked. Barely, I said. I paid for that vacation in full, remember? He winced and set it down. By 4:30, the boxes were stacked by the door. He lingered in the middle of the room, scanning the walls like he was trying to memorize a version of himself that used to exist here. So that's it? He asked. You're really done? I met his eyes. I was done the moment you turned our relationship into content. He nodded, mouth tight. You'll regret this, Marin. You'll be alone in that perfect condo with your spreadsheets and your coffee machine. I'm okay with quiet, I said. You confuse peace with emptiness. He didn't have a comeback. Tom cleared his throat. We should go, man. As they stepped into the hallway, Nate turned back one last time. For what it's worth, he said, I did love you. I didn't answer. The door closed behind them with a sound that was more final than loud. I stood there, listening to the silence expand until it filled every corner. The next morning, a text from Patricia appeared. He's back home, already arguing with me about rent. I'm sorry you had to go through this, Marin. A beat later, another message. For what it's worth, I don't think you were ever the problem. I read it twice, then deleted it. At noon, I got another message, this time from Bria, a screenshot of a private Facebook group chat, 7 women, the title, Nate Survivors. She'd added me to it. Inside were stories so familiar they could have been written by a copywriter. Same love bombing, same money drain, same dramatic TikToks about toxic partners. Each of them thought they were the first. One message from Connie stood out. He said I was his safe space. Translation, I paid his bills. Bria messaged privately, welcome to the club. We send cake when you hit the 30-day mark of peace. I smiled for the first time in weeks. That evening, I poured a single glass of wine, set my phone face down, and walked to the kitchen. The condo looked bigger now, the air lighter. I pressed the button on the espresso machine, the one he'd fought over like it was a symbol of ownership, and listened to it hum, low and steady. When the first hiss of steam filled the air, I realized something simple. The quiet wasn't absence. It was relief. 3 days passed before I realized the condo had its own rhythm again. The hum of the refrigerator, the buzz of the espresso machine warming up each morning, the soft creak of the hallway when I walked barefoot to make coffee. For months, every sound had been drowned out by Nate. His playlists, his calls, his constant narrating of his own ambition. Now, all that space felt both eerie and beautiful. I'd forgotten what my own quiet sounded like. The Nate Survivors group chat was more active than I expected. 7 women, all with the same story told in different accents. Bria, the one who'd first emailed me, was sarcastic and sharp. She called him the influencer without influence. Connie lived 3 states away and sent screenshots of Nate's old texts, copy-pasted lines about needing a muse who understands the grind. Another woman, Elysium, wrote, He said he wanted to build a legacy. Turns out the legacy was debt. They weren't bitter. They were funny, exhausted, and startlingly kind. They talked about the weird aftermath of freeing yourself from someone who'd trained you to feel like your empathy was currency. Bria said, "When he left, my apartment felt haunted for weeks. Then I realized it wasn't him I missed. It was the version of me that thought loving him was noble." That line stuck to me all day. By the end of the week, the story had burned itself out online. The threads vanished, the comments quieted, the algorithm moved on to fresher drama. But then Patricia texted again. "He's already dating someone new. I thought you should know." I ignored it. 2 days later, she's younger, a fitness instructor. He's posting again. Still ignored. Then, "You were right. She moved him in. I give it 2 weeks." That one made me laugh. The women in the group chat started a new betting pool. How long before the new girl caught on? Elise guessed 10 days. Bria guessed a week. I guessed nothing. I didn't want to keep score anymore. Freedom doesn't need proof. One evening, I came home to find a small package outside my door. No return address. Inside was a cake, chocolate with gold lettering. It said, "Congratulations on your freedom." I didn't need to ask where it came from. I set it on the kitchen counter beside the espresso machine, cut a small slice, and ate it standing up. The taste wasn't victory. It was relief, rich and quiet and earned. A week later, Patricia called one last time. "Marin," she said, "I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For not letting him drag you down the way he did everyone else. Maybe he'll learn something this time." "I hope so," I said. "For your sake." There was a pause. "You really cared about him, didn't you?" "I did," I said softly. "But sometimes caring isn't enough. Sometimes it just keeps you tired." She didn't know what to say after that. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through old emails. The invoices, the receipts, the texts I'd once kept as evidence. I deleted them all. Every folder, every file, gone. Because I realized something I hadn't before. Proof only matters when you're still trying to convince someone. And I was done convincing. The next morning, I woke early, sunlight bleeding through the blinds. I opened the window, let the cold air in, and made coffee. As the machine hissed to life, I thought about how everything had started with that one post, 6 words thrown into the digital void, dating a woman who can't afford to spoil you. It wasn't even original. He'd stolen it like everything else. But it had exposed everything. His entitlement, his fear, the way he'd built a life out of pretending to deserve what he never earned. And in a strange way, I was grateful for it. Because without that post, I might still be financing someone else's delusion. Sometimes people ask what revenge feels like. I tell them it doesn't. It's not fire or fury or grand gestures. It's just quiet. It's the stillness after the storm when you realize you're not waiting for the next one anymore. I don't check his socials. I don't ask mutual friends how he's doing. Whatever story he's telling now, to his followers, to the next woman, to himself, isn't mine to edit. I've stopped trying to win the argument. I've already won my piece. That night, I stood by the window, city lights blinking like a slow heartbeat, and whispered to no one in particular. Some people see love as a transaction, but the ones who drain you never give receipts. I picked up my cup, warm and steady, and took a sip. No noise, no drama, just quiet satisfaction and the hum of the espresso machine, my favorite sound in the world now. Because it was mine, and so was everything else that mattered.